So as I mentioned in the debate last night between Governor Newsom and Ron DeSantis, it was Gavin Newsom that interjected Fred Guttenberg and his daughter, and I want to play that for you before I introduce our next guest. Here's how that went down.
You had a young girl by the name of Jamie Guttenberg, whose father pleaded with you to do something about it. And you know what you did? You did the exact opposite. You made it easier for felons to get guns without background checks, without any training. These people pleaded with you, the parents and the families, to get tough on gun safety. And again, you made it easier for felons.
That man is joining us right now on the line. Always a pleasure having him on. Just always an honor. Fred Guttenberg joining us right now on Pushing the Limits. Fred, always a pleasure having you, my friend. How are you?
Hey, Brian. I'm good. That was weird last night.
Yeah, you know,
that one coming.
It was, wasn't it? I texted you and I had mentioned to you, and I'm sure you got a lot of texts that Gavin Newsom mentioned your name. Let me ask you this to start. What went through your mind the first time you heard that clip of Gavin Newsom interjecting your name and, of course, your daughter's name?
My first thought was thank you. It is time that Democrats fight that fight as clearly as he did on issues like this, because it is where Americans stand, and Gavin Newsom stands on the side of those who want to stop the next one. He is 100% right with what he said about Governor DeSantis. In the state of Florida, back in July, Governor DeSantis, in the middle of the night, signed legislation on permitless carry. You can be a felon and untrained, anything you want. You can be someone who can't get a gun legally, go to a gun store, get your weapon, no background check, steal it from somebody's unlocked car, no background check, any of those things, and carry it in the state of Florida, and nobody can do anything about it.
Have you had any personal discussions with Ron DeSantis about this?
About permitless carry?
Yeah.
No, you know what? In Ron DeSantis's first year in the administration, his administration and I were in pretty regular communication. We actually were working on some similar, hopeful outcomes with regards to what happened in the shooting. And candidly, I was shocked by him in his first year with how moderate he was governing and how he really seemed to want to not be an extreme person.
What changed?
He decided he wanted to run for president. And the only way to get there, I guess in his estimation, was to lock down a base that belonged to Donald Trump. And everything about him changed as a result. We have not spoken since. I do not communicate with his administration anymore. And honestly, not surprised to me, because I do know him. He failed because he's a terrible candidate.
Would you go as far as to say, if you're a Republican today, you're a bad person when you choose, worried about, staying in power, or maybe in Ron DeSantis's case, trying to be the next president of the United States, which we know he's not going to be, and you put that over people like you, people like your daughter, when you have the type of school shooting in Parkland where all these innocent people died, and you choose staying in power, or in this case, trying to become the next president of the United States, over saving lives?
Listen, there are a lot of Republicans who I think the world of, who are not bad people. Sadly, they don't have a place in this current version of that party. So those who stay in this current version of that party, trying to win the nomination from a base that has decided Donald Trump should be president, a base that has decided elections actually don't matter, a base that has decided democracy is not something we any longer need. Trying to win in that version of this party makes you a bad person. I have respect for those who have said, we're going to walk away, do everything we can to defeat this party in 24, and then we'll rebuild it.
I completely agree with you, Fred. Obviously, debate last night, a good part of it was about gun control, and I'm glad that Gavin Newsom mentioned you and your daughter. With that said, a lot of other topics were discussed. does Ron DeSantis have any good points when he criticizes Gavin Newsom for the homeless issues? He even had a feces map, for lack of a better term, that he used. What did you make of Ron DeSantis's performance as a whole? Do you think he made any good points at all?
When Gavin Newsom mentioned my name, he mentioned a tweet that I put out, and I have often called DeSantis small, weak, and weird, and at times pathetic. Honestly, I thought his performance last night was small, weak, weird, and pathetic. And pulling out that map was just ridiculous. I don't even know the source of that map. I can't speak to homelessness in California versus Florida. Every state has its own unique circumstances. What I can tell you is Florida is no longer the place that it was. People can't afford to live here now, not just because of the cost of purchasing or renting, which now rivals New York, but the cost of homeowners insurance because the market collapsed under DeSantis's watch. And in fact, when people can't afford where they live, you are going to see more homelessness. And you're seeing that here in Florida. So to see DeSantis act like, that's not happening here in Florida, was a lie. Again, I can't speak to California, but I can speak to Florida.
Obviously, we wish that these politicians were not mentioning your name, and we all wish that your daughter was still here and all those innocent lives weren't lost. Obviously, that's without being said. We all agree there. Is it weird for you, though? I mean, Fred, you're a household name now, and I think for all the right reasons that you're pushing for, and many of us agree with you when it comes to gun control. But with that being said, is that still a little strange? I mean, we have tens of millions of people that watched the debate last night, and one of the few names that were mentioned in the entire debate was you and your daughter. Is that strange for you? Because you've pretty much become a household name, and as I said, for the right reasons, and you wanting to do the right thing.
Yes. I hate that this is kind of the arc of my life at the moment. I should be doing what all of my other friends do with their kids who were Jamie's age and visiting her in school. That's where my life was supposed to be. I should still be known as Jesse and Jamie's goofy dad, because that's who I was. I was always a guy who worked my tail off, but I had a great time with my kids. Their friends, they loved coming to my house because my house was a place where you could come. You could for sure be closely monitored. Parents knew it, but we had a good time. I was Jesse and Jamie's goofy dad, and I would give anything to have that back and not to be mentioned in a debate like I was last night. But that's not happening.
Of course. We all agree on that. Moving forward now, I want to get your thoughts on this because you're pretty juiced in when I say this. A lot of the key players, a lot of the big Democrats in office today. What can you tell us about Joe Biden? I asked Andrew Yang this question. He came on the other day and he gave me I'm going to ask you the same question I asked him. Do you think it will be Joe Biden versus Donald Trump? Or if not, what do you think is going to happen?
So I didn't hear Andrew Yang's answer. I don't know if it was different than mine, but I do know President Biden. I was with him not long ago. I think he is incredibly vibrant still. And I'll just say this. Look at where we are as a country today. Look at what has happened, whether you're talking infrastructure, gun policy, which is finally we're changing the course there. Environment, you can look across foreign policy. You can look across the board and say, because of President Biden, we are in a better place. Because of the people that gravitate to him, that work in that White House, we are in a better place. And so here's my feeling. He has earned the right to run for re-election. He is running for re-election. He will be re-elected. For everyone who sits around saying, I can't believe we're going to have the same choice that we had the last time, buckle up because you will. It's going to be Biden versus Trump. Biden will again defeat Trump. And because Biden defeats Trump, democracy survives. If Trump, other way around, it doesn't.
Obviously, Fred, for the most part, I'm on your side politically. Obviously, I'll be voting for Joe Biden. I mean, I would even vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I'm not a big Robert F. Kennedy over Trump. I'd vote for just about anybody over Donald Trump. With that being said, though, Fred, I'm worried. And I don't always go by the polls. The polls all told us Hillary was going to win in 2016. I don't always go by the polls, but I'm still very worried because there's still a large percentage of people in this country that will not vote for Joe Biden, that will vote for Donald Trump, no matter who he's running against. Are you worried at all?
I hear you. Here's why I'm not worried. That large percentage of people that will vote for Trump are what's left of the Republican Party. Those who were once part of that party have moved out and become no party affiliate. They are not going to vote for Trump. Okay, so you're going to have your Democrats voting for Trump, your longtime independents voting, for Biden, your longtime independents voting for Biden, and you're going to have a whole group of people previously in the Republican Party who are going to vote for Biden because they want to annihilate what's left of that party and rebuild it, and they want democracy to thrive. Listen, you and I have talked about, as an example, Joe Walsh before, okay? Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, former Republicans who will vote for Biden because they love democracy.
Right.
I think at the end of the day, the closing argument of this race is going to be really simple. Do you want democracy to survive or not?
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Isn't it interesting, though, that there are still so many Republicans out there that call their party the Law and Order Party,
Yeah.
yet on a debate stage, so many Republicans up there on the stage raise their hand if asked if Donald Trump is basically a convicted felon, would you still support him? And many of them still say yes. That's not just the people that are running for president. Those are most in the Republican Party that are in office today. They would still vote for Donald Trump. What does that say about the Republican Party?
Well, listen, what it says to me is what's left of it and those who identify in it are broken people supporting a broken candidate and who don't support democracy. I no longer even try to engage those people, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
I think what it says to me is while that may be 30-something% of the electorate, you still have, call it 70% that isn't in that same place. And we just need to focus the next year on talking to them and making sure they get out and vote. They don't sit home. Sitting home in the next election is not an option. You may not love your choice, but you better vote for it.
Fred, you've met these people. You've met the vice president, Kamala Harris. You've spent time with her. You've spent time with Joe Biden. You've spent time with a lot of these elected officials. I hear from some Democrats out there that are not the biggest fans of our vice president. I don't know her personally. Can you talk a little bit about that? Talk about your time with Kamala Harris, because I don't know her. I've never met her. Clearly you have. What can you say about her?
This is one of those that I don't get. And maybe it's just sometimes things translate differently in person than on a television screen. Because in person, one of the most authentic, dynamic, smart people I've had a chance to communicate with. And so I don't get it. I know that exists, that feeling. But I think it just may be one of those things where it's either the way it translates on television or maybe it's the way media covers her, which I think is part of it and something that we all need to be honest about.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Fred Guttenberg. He was mentioned in the debate last night, and he's nice enough to join us today. All right. You've also met with not just Democrats, right? You've met with a lot of Republicans. Could have been Marco Rubio, could have been Ron DeSantis. Here's my question for you. Of the far right, I hate to use this term, but I will, MAGA Republicans that you've met with, have any of them, in your opinion, been sincere with you? They really want change. They care about what happened to your daughter and all those other innocent people that have died in Parkland and mass shootings around the country. Can you say with a straight face that you've met some of these ultra MAGA Republicans and some of them, in your opinion, are genuine?
You know, if you would have asked me that question 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I probably would have answered it yes. They especially since January 6th, they've all moved away from any effort to even act genuine, to even act as if this is just a difference of opinion. They are all in on the crazy. Again, 2.5 years ago, I would have said absolutely yes. It's just we just don't see the world the same way. Today, I'm going to tell you the answer is no. In my mind, if you can't stand up for democracy, we live on different planets. We're just not in the same room. And so, for sure, I do think the big lie over the election and January 6th has changed my feeling on that.
My argument, Fred, and you know this better than me, but is I feel like a lot of these far right radical MAGA Republicans care more about their A+ rating from the NRA than actually, getting things done and saving lives. And the argument I also make is, have you seen any Democrats running for office or any campaign ads bragging about their A+ rating from their NRA? It's actually the opposite. A lot of these Democrats brag about their D or F rating from the NRA because they don't care. That most Democrats, maybe not all, but I think most Democrats, they want to put reasonable laws on the books. It could be an assault weapons ban, you name it. I just feel like that's more important to so many, not all, but so many Republicans. Their
Oh,
A+
Brian,
rating from the NRA, right?
they're so much more simple than even that. Listen,
Yeah.
they don't even go for the A rating, and the NRA doesn't even give out the ratings anymore, because the truth is, after Parkland, we eviscerated the NRA and what that stood for. It doesn't exist anymore. These MAGA Republicans, their requirements are far more simple than that A rating.
Yeah.
They want to kiss the ring. That's it. They want to, for whatever reason, they are feeling this need to embrace and be led by this guy who they know is bad for democracy, who they know is a liar, who they know is a criminal. But you know what? They don't care. They feel as if it'll give them some kind of power if they help him get elected. It won't. He'll discard of them the way he does everyone else when they no longer serve a purpose. But that's who they are. They're weak. They're weak people.
I agree. I just want to run a couple more quick questions for you. I want to run down some of the things that I talk about when I'm getting into a gun control debate with somebody. I want to pick your brain on this, and you tell me whether you agree or not. Just several things. I think just like buying, getting your driver's license, guns should be treated in a sense the same way. You need an instructor. You need to know how to, shoot the gun. Whatever the case may be, you need some training there. I think the age should be 18 to 21 to purchase a gun. I think we need an assault weapons ban, similar to an assault weapons ban that was in the early 90s until Republicans allowed that to fizzle out. Those are just some of the things that I think we need to do to start that I think would lower some of the gun violence. And red flag laws. In some states, as you know, Fred, you can, threaten a friend or threaten a spouse and say, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to go buy a gun and kill you. Now, that person would probably be arrested. But in some states, the next day, they'd be allowed to legally purchase a gun. I mean, those are 3 or 4 things that I think that should be implemented. They won't, but they should be, that I think would save lives. Do you agree with those?
Well, listen, let's start with red flag laws.
Sure.
Because more states are doing that. And let's look at the most recent mass shooting in Maine. A red flag law likely would have prevented that.
Correct.
Maine, in a sellout to the NRA, implemented what they called a yellow flag law, which made it impossible to actually utilize an extreme risk protection order. So red flag laws work. They should be the law of the land in every state across this country. You went through a whole litany of other things. I agree with you, but I'm going to tell you this. I think there's a few things you didn't mention. One is repeal PWACA. Mm-hmm. I think if you want to change the course of where we are in this country with regards to guns and gun violence, because this is not an anti-gun conversation. This is an anti-gun violence conversation. And if you want to change the course, hold those accountable for flooding our streets as part of their business model, okay, knowing that the more guns they flood our streets with, the more fear they cause, and then the more they drive other people to buy guns. It's part of the business model. Let's sue them. Let's get the documents that show what went into their business planning. They had a cost of doing business on people like my daughter. Let's have the tobacco moment. But to do it, we have to repeal PLCA. That's number one.
I
Number
agree.
two, because we already have over 400 million weapons in America, plus ghost guns. 20 years ago when Jamie was born, we were about 200 million. So we've more than doubled our arsenal in 20 years. The reality is we have to be more creative. And to me, the holy grail of solving gun violence, because again, this is not anti-gun, this is anti-gun violence, is through ammunition. If you're a prohibited purchaser of a firearm in America, you by law are also prohibited from buying ammunition. However, there is no requirement for a background check on ammunition. So all of these folks who get their guns through gun shows because they can't pass a background check, or by stealing it from somebody or trading for it with somebody, they simply walk into the store and buy the bullets and nobody checks. If you want to save lives immediately, let's extend background checks to ammunition.
I agree with both of those 100%. In fact, of the things you mentioned and the things I mentioned, and let's be honest, most Democrats probably agree with all of those things, or at least or most Democrat lawmakers. The problem is Republicans don't. If they could just give us a few of those, it would be a great start. But unfortunately, they're not. And that's what makes it so difficult for these types of bills to pass. Last question for you. And I wanted to bring this up because, when I lost my sister last year, my parents got a dog. And I can't even, and I thought of you because of your charity and how much it helps in the grieving process. It helps with your family, with my family. So I want to give you the opportunity, the wonderful work that you have done with your charity in helping families out there across the country that have lost loved ones and giving them the gift of a dog or a cat or whatever, in this case, a dog. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when Jamie was killed, we had 2 dogs in our house. One was 5 years old, and then we had a 4-month-old puppy. And I've talked often about how having those 2 dogs, and especially the puppy, saved my family, saved me. And about a year and a half ago, my wife just kept on thinking, we have to do something different with our foundation that is unique to Orange Ribbons for Jamie, which is what our foundation is called. And the only thing that made sense, because we're such dog-obsessed people, and so was Jamie, was something with dogs. And we came up with the idea that we call Paws of Love to give what we call companion dogs to families affected by gun violence. And we're working with a breeder. So we give puppies that are 8 to 10 weeks old, and the breeder, based upon the families, we get to know them, we interview them, and we find out what type of environment is in their house. We can select a certain puppy with a certain personality and place it with that family. But then we also do the entire first year, all the medical, all the grooming, all the training, food, the crate, the toys, everything. So listen, my daughter doesn't get to be a part of this with us physically, but my daughter is the heart and soul of this. And through our foundation, and again, called Orange Ribbons for Jamie, this is how Jamie will live.
I love it. Always in all of our hearts what you do. And I say this at the end of every interview with you because I mean it with all my heart. I have so much respect for you and your family. You're a wonderful man. I don't know how your daughter would have felt about this if she would have wanted her dad to run for office, but I can tell you there's a lot of people in this country like myself that wish one day you would. I don't know if that's something you'll ever do. You would have my vote in a heartbeat.
I am going to keep using my big mouth to say what I want, when I want, how I want, without any worries of whether or not I said the wrong thing or said it too aggressively. I got to be me.
And you're probably going to accomplish more by being you. So I can understand that completely. Yeah. Fred, always a pleasure, my friend. Best regards to you and your family. Have a good holiday, as good as you can, and just keep up fighting the fight, my man. I just have so much respect for you, and I always appreciate it when you take the time to come on the show, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. Take care.
Appreciate it. Take care. That's Fred Guttenberg. Just a wonderful man. I get choked up when I think about